Happy New Year, Internet! For 2025, I made a lot of shoddy resolutions that I may or may not stick to, but the one at the top of my list was to post as much art as I could. If you don't know me, probably don't. I'm Sasha, a digital illustrator with a focus on surrealism, usually involving subjects interacting with nature. I've been creating art for most of my life, and my primary medium for sharing that art has usually been gallery-sponsored group exhibits, solo exhibits, and publications. But this year, I wanted to try something a little different, building a community around my art online. The goal was simple. I'd like to connect with my audience and other artists, and open up new opportunities via I've already kind of been attempting this the last 2 months of 2024, but the first few weeks were productive and exhausting. I was constantly creating, editing, and engaging with followers, trying to outsmart the algorithm. And it kind of worked. I've gained a few more followers on one platform, and it makes me feel some sort of depressed version of achievement. But recently, someone left a comment on one of my posts that left me feeling a little raw. I know they meant it as a compliment, but the word content felt so off to me. My art, this thing that I pour so much of myself into, felt reduced by that word. Reduced to a tiny piece of scrollable entertainment. But then I thought, isn't that exactly what I'm making right now? Art content. And if that's the case, is there a tangible difference between fine art and content anymore? And that led me to think about a lot of things, but mostly made me think about, what does that say about the value of fine art in today's world? What does fine art even mean? Before diving into all this, it's worth asking, what is fine art? Merriam-Webster defines fine art as art, such as painting, sculpture, music, concerned primarily with the creation of beautiful objects, or objects of fine art, or an activity requiring a fine skill. The words that stand out to me here are skill and beautiful objects, but we'll come back to that later. In my mind, and what feels reflected in this definition, is a specification that traditional fine art refers to creative work made for aesthetic and intellectual purposes. Think paintings, sculptures, prints, illustrations, anything. The caveat tends to be that they aren't designed to be functional. It's art for art's sake, not for utility or mass production. There are, of course, exceptions to this rule. I love furniture art, and I went to college for interactive media art. But when I think of fine art, I tend to think specifically of selective appeal. In my experience navigating the New York City art world, fine art has always been closely tied to exclusivity. Galleries, museums, and collectors act as gatekeepers, deciding what counts as real art and who gets access to those spaces. For most of history, those making those decisions have excluded many, including artists of color, female artists, or more recently, anyone who doesn't have a grant to shell out for participation fees. Vanity galleries are my most extreme example of this. These spaces charge artists outrageous fees, sometimes thousands of dollars, to exhibit their work, promising exposure that rarely ever materializes. Many of these galleries market themselves aggressively on social media, boasting high follower counts and sleek ads, but you look at their posts and there's like 2 likes, so clearly something is up. But for struggling artists, this can feel like a necessary step. You pay the fee, hang your work, and hope for a breakthrough. But often, the result is a string of exhibitions that lead nowhere. Your art is technically shown, but it's not reaching the right audiences, and the financial strain can be devastating. For many artists today, especially those from marginalized communities, the fine art world still feels like an impossible system to navigate. Luckily, the dawn of social media provides an alternative route, but that comes with its own set of challenges. Social media platforms like Instagram and TikTok have completely disrupted the world of fine art. But it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Artists no longer need to have a gallery to get their work in front of an audience. They can post it themselves. Want to get curated advice on your pieces? Reddit. Want to show your creation and marketing process? YouTube. Want to build a loyal following? Instagram. I found one of my current favorite artists on Instagram. Her name is Anna Laura Art. You've definitely seen these cutesy little bears before on your feed. And to me, she's a good example of an artist who used social media to amplify her work, blending her comforting short narrative comics with short-form content in a way that resonates. But the utilization of the tool that is social media comes at a cost. It's not a free market economy. Algorithms reward consistency, trends, and engagement, not necessarily quality or depth. This forces many artists to adapt their work to what's popular or risk being ignored. It's much easier to gravitate towards producing celebrity art, fan art, and animated reactions to popular trending audios. To me, this results in a lot of art that looks or feels the same. thematically, in tone, colors, shape, and this just compounds with the sheer volume of art online. Every day, thousands of new pieces flood social media, making it harder than ever for any single artist to stand out. That pressure has definitely skewed the way I produce art. It's a weird feeling to feel like you constantly have to be putting something out there, especially when you work in such a time consuming medium. Adding even more to the never ending chaos is the rise of AI generated art. Yay. AI tools like Midjourney and DALL-E allow anybody to create visuals in seconds. While I'd argue AI tools do have potential, I don't think they're in the ideation or creation phase. They're better for post production environments, like small scale video editing or photo editing, which I've had firsthand experience with. The way visual AI is being utilized culturally right now, and especially on social media, I have no other words to describe it other than Pixar villain levels of unethicality. I'm looking directly at companies like Google and Meta right now. Like, fake people? Really? How do we value art when the process itself is no longer uniquely human or necessarily expressive? What does it mean for artists to build a fan base via social media when you feel beholden to a broken system? A system that seems insistent on making you feel seen and engaged with instead of fostering genuine interactions. What holds more value to an audience? The synthesis of these beautiful objects or the skill and talent required to create them? This creates a strange paradox to me. In theory, the art world is more open than ever, with endless platforms to share your work. But in practice, it can feel just as exclusive and exploitative as ever, just in newer, more pixelated ways. So the more I think about that comment, great content, the more I wonder if the line between art and content even matters or exists anymore. If fine art is supposed to challenge, inspire, or provoke, can't content do the same? Or is content inherently less valuable because of the systems that produce and distribute it? A painting shared on Instagram is art, but the moment it's cropped into a reel or paired with a trending sound, it to me feels more like content. Maybe the distinction isn't about what the art is, but how it's consumed. And that's where things get tricky. In a society obsessed with efficiency and instant gratification, fine art's value isn't always obvious. It doesn't serve a functional purpose, and it's not always easy to digest. But maybe that's exactly what makes it so important. Fine art forces us to slow down, think, and feel in ways that content often doesn't. So where does that leave us? For artists, navigating this landscape feels like walking a tightrope. We want to create meaningful work, but we also need to survive. And that often means engaging with systems like galleries, algorithms, AI, that don't always value us as expressive individuals. The value of fine art in contemporary society might not have a single answer. It's wrapped up in questions of identity, technology, and accessibility, all of which are constantly shifting. But I think these tensions are worth exploring, even if they don't lead to neat conclusions. So, if you're an artist watching this, how do you value the art you make in relation to this paradox? Do you see your experience reflected in mine? And if you're not an artist, what does fine art mean to you? It's okay if it means nothing. I just kind of want to know. Is it something you seek out, or is it just another thing to scroll past? But I'm curious as to what you think. So here's the finished piece. Ta-da! As always, thank you so much for drawing with me. If you want to watch this video without the yapping, I made a long form version. If you'd like to buy a print of this piece, I've got it listed on www.sashysty.com. And if you want to read this as an essay, you can find me on Medium. Alright, I'm going to go varnish this and post it on TikTok. Bye!